Everybody just has to get.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our March 14, 2022 Board of Education meeting. Welcome you all, both in person and a number of folks that are online. Thank you for joining us. And begin this evening with the pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good evening. We're going to start. We have a series of presentations, a couple of which shouldn't take too long, but nonetheless very important. Anna, I'll start.
Thank you, Mr. Mannix. Tonight we have the pleasure of, years ago, the state came forward with smart schools money for each district. And over time, we have worked at ordering pieces that we need for our district with the smart schools money. And as part of the process, there still is a remaining balance that Mr. Luthringer is going to go over tonight. And we'll be alerting the board as to how we hope to spend it. So Mr. Luthringer, take it away, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. As Mr. Gannett alluded to, it's always nice to take a few minutes to talk about our plans with technology. We're always working closely as a district to ensure that we not only have the best technology, but we also have a plan for the future when technology becomes outdated and we need to replace them. So one of our sources of funding comes from Smart Schools Bond Act. So we're going to go over a little bit of that today and our future thoughts on using the rest of the funds that are in this account. So just a little reminder here. I know we have a couple of new board members who have not heard me speak about the Smart Schools Bond Act, but we just a little bit about this is that it's an actual bond act. So it's not a budget appropriation. It's not something that has to be voted upon by the legislators each year. The state voters did authorize this to take on debt for a particular purpose. So that purpose centers around schools' use of technology and security. So technology, there's a very specific list of items that can be procured through Smart Schools Bond Act. And there's also a list of security items, might be cameras, might be all sorts of different things, door access, different things like that. The eligible funds, again, do not include state operations. They cannot be used to balance the budget. It's really designed to support schools and really level the playing field for districts over the last several years in bringing their technology infrastructure up to par. So really it requires tremendous planning. I work closely with Scott's office in predicting the future at times, but we really do a lot of planning and we really take a close look at auditing where we're at in our district when it comes to technology infrastructure. And we've been using this funding source over the last really probably almost a decade by now to really ensure our kids are getting and our staff are getting what they need with technology. So when we were first, the allocation was first awarded to us is November 2014, again, approved by the state voters. We were awarded approximately $1.9 billion. And there has been a host of smart schools proposals put through over a number of years. And we are at a remaining allocation of about $470,000. Our most recent smart schools investment plans, again, these are ones that I've been a part of. But our most recent ones in 2019-20, we did a full replacement of our current server environment. So again, thinking of servers, they really run, they're the heartbeat of our district. They run everything that we pretty much see behind the scenes. They're really important. So we replaced our current server environment. We also updated the high school auditorium projector, which is projectors for that scale are quite costly. So we use this funding knowing that projector will probably last between 20 and 30 years. It's really a high quality projector. And then we also upgraded our laser engraver in our innovations class in the high school. Again, this is something our students use often. It's a great tool, again, a costly piece of equipment that we can use this funding source to support our programs. Most recently, in 2021, the Board of Education approved another SIP plan, they call them. And this one focused on displays at the elementary school. So we have clear touch devices. They're touch large, about 60 to 70 inch screens in each of the classroom. They're all interactive for students and teacher use. Again, those always have a life cycle. So we've reached the end of life of our current ones. So they really need to be replaced. Again, they're costly displays. So again, we use this funding as well. So those are coming this summer. We actually have a shipping date and a delivery date of the end of June. So we're excited about that. Those will be replaced this summer, along with projectors. So in the 3 other buildings, middle school, Barton, and the elementary school, there are projectors in classrooms as well. Not so much in QES. There's about 8 to 10 rooms in QES. But the middle school and Barton building have projectors. That's their main source of instruction for our teachers to use and our students to see displays. So those are all getting replaced as part of that SIP proposal as well. Moving into our current technology needs, really our infrastructure is really sound. As I just went through, our behind the scenes, our main displays, our biggest pieces of infrastructure are really, we feel very good about that. But the one thing we want to make sure we always support is our Chromebook infrastructure plan. So really our one-to-one program that was launched well before my time, and certainly Mr. Gannon was involved with that as well. And actually, that was one of the very first Smart Schools proposals, was to get that off the ground. So we want to continue to support that. And there are a couple areas of focus here when it comes to Chromebooks. One of them is in kindergarten. So in kindergarten, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic in March of 2020, kindergarten was 2 to 1, so 2 devices per 1 student. So classes shared a cart, so really across the hall or right next to each other. And that was really very useful for them. We always had a plan to get them to 1-to-1, but COVID really forced that. We needed our students to go home with devices. So, the magic of my department in technology, we made it happen. We went and got a bunch of loaners. We found devices that we were using in other areas, and we really brought kindergarten up to speed. So all of the students could go home and still learn remotely in those last few months of school. So we've kept them in there because it's important. All of our students, no matter our youngest or our oldest, should have access to a high quality device. But we have a problem now. We have different ages, we have different brands. Some of them are going to be end of life soon this summer. So we know we need to bring that up to speed. So we would like to use the funding for this to help with kindergarten and also really to offset future costs of our existing Chromebook replacement plan. So I talk about that on the next slide here a little bit, where we do replace 3 grade levels annually. So that's about a total cost operationally of about $250,000. But what's happening, and we all know in the current climate, costs are increasing. Computer chips are becoming really, really hard to find, even with Chromebooks. The supply chain is affecting Chromebooks. So costs are going up. In addition to that, Chromebooks are becoming better. So, and they're in high demand. So again, you're seeing costs rise. So we know that $250,000 marker is going to increase. So we'd like to use Smart Schools to offset some of our annual operational costs, in addition to really right-sizing kindergarten and bringing them up to 1-to-1 with brand new devices to start next fall. So that's an approximate cost of $80,000. So it's a really kind of cut and dry proposal on this one. State Ed does expedited reviews when it comes to Chromebooks in particular. So really we're looking to use the rest of this funding to make a strong investment in our Chromebooks future. And that's really, when you get to the heart of it, that's probably the most important thing our school can offer our students, because instructional technology is just critical. We really can't do our jobs without it. So we're looking to use really the remaining funds, $470,000, spread out over a few years to help offset those costs. This will bring us down to $0. And then we'll be working closely with Scott to ensure that we've got a budget line moving forward beyond that to ensure that we always have a replacement cycle. It's always going to be going. So that's really the crux of the plan here that we would like to propose. The timeline, again, right now it's a public presentation. It's required by law. This presentation has been posted to the website already for public review. We will have April 11th, we'll have a public hearing. Anybody can ask questions or comment on the proposal. Pending any questions, the Board of Education can make a recommendation or from Kyle to approve this plan, and then I will submit that the following day. We expect with an expedited review of 6 months, hopefully a little sooner, approval by State Ed, and we'll have our funding and can move forward. So this is our projected timeline. If the Board of Ed has any questions, happy to help elaborate.
Thanks, Mr. Luthringer. Does the board have any questions? Anybody online?
Dan, I have a question for John. I'm just curious with the recycle program, the Chromebook,
Thanks very much. Next, we have the snack pack program recognition. Deanna?
I have asked Kristen Bergen and Amanda Demo to join me today. It's very, it's easy to get emotional about this next topic. It's easy to get emotional because they're our kids. And our kids that go to school here, we have great kids and we're very proud of our community, but there are students that we all know go home with less and have less at their house. And we have so many people that champion this process. Years ago, when I was the elementary principal, I know I'm dating myself a little bit, but I remember the snack pack program with our kindergartners, bringing out snacks. And for a while, I would see, when I wasn't looking, a child dragging their bag because they were sent home with items for the weekend or for a vacation, and the bag was full. And to me, that always warmed my heart. Well, we are very, very fortunate to have these individuals that are in charge of the snack pack program for our school right now. It's not an easy process. It's a hard process. It's a grueling process, but they are true champions of our students. And so we wanted to take a moment. I asked, so we have 3 individuals we're going to recognize. We know there's more people that help out, but tonight we're going to recognize Andrea Keller, Carissa Gerard, as well as Maria Bosford, who I believe is online. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Deno and Mrs. Bergen to say a few words about the process.
We're very fortunate at Queensbury School to have an excellent food service program, but we do have that weekend food insufficiency and insecurity that our students are concerned about. So our snack pack program is designed really to provide students a breakfast and a lunch each day of the weekend. And these bags, like Mr. Gannon said, that they bring home on vacations are really enormous and sometimes half the size of a kindergartner. It's adorable. So when Amanda and I were talking about how to represent this program, I said, we should really calculate how many meals are served. So let me start. We have 175 students that receive snack packs each week. And over the course of the school year so far, that's 5,077 bags. That's absolutely incredible. And our members here tonight coordinate all the scheduling of that, all the packing. Thanks to Mrs. Scotland and Ms. Bennett Barnes, our high school kids help pack as well. We're really, really fortunate. And then the meals, it's amazing.
Yeah, so you've heard the number of bags that we have given out, but the number of meals that's within a bag, we've packed a total of 23,100 meals for our students. So you hear that number.
This year alone.
Yeah, 23,100 meals alone this year. So that's absolutely incredible, the time that it takes to go into coordinating what goes into the bag. It's not just a hodgepodge, every kid gets the same thing. It's equitable for all students. And I was talking to a little guy just on Friday, and I said, what's your favorite thing about snack pack? And he said, well, I love it all. And I said, well, what's your favorite thing? And he said, the cereal. I love to look into the bag and see what type of cereal I have. So just so you know, the kids talk about it, they're excited about it, they love getting it. And the appreciation of the families, we've had some families that have fallen on hard times that'll say, listen, I just need to come in for a couple of weeks, I need to get back on my feet, or we lost a job, or they know that they can rely on this on a weekly basis. And then not to mention the big bags that go home over the long breaks. Those are the ones that the kids are dragging or saying, can you bring this onto the bus for me? Those bags take a lot to go into. And most recently, Mrs. Annie Tully's class, a 5th grade class, they volunteered their time around the holidays to pack all the holiday large bags. So again, we can't thank you enough, and our students and our families can't thank you enough.
So I'd like to call, I can't call Maria up, I think she's online, but I'm going to call Carissa and Andrea up, please. And could everybody stand and give them a round of applause, please? And Maria, we will make sure your certificate gets to you, and thank you, Maria, for all you do. We really appreciate you're on the big screen right now, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for doing that, for getting this down. If many of us have been in the administrative conference room over in the white building, it takes up the shelves and shelves of provisions. It's taken up more than half the room. It's always wonderful to see. It's always chock full. So the work you do is very much appreciated. Thank you. Next, Mr. Gannon, Mr. Keys, who has some special awards.
Thank you, Mr. Mannix. I'm going to ask Mr. Keys to join me at the microphone. Tonight, we would like to recognize two of our athletes who, believe it or not, our kids are so busy. We were unable to get either of the athletes that we're about to talk about tonight here. One had a concert and another had a function in Albany that they needed to be at. However, we were it's always special. There are so many things to recognize. I know we'll hear later on some other things that the board has seen and heard, but these two individuals won New York State championships. And so I've asked Mr. Keys to talk on their behalf, and we'll let them know. We'll make sure they receive their certificates from the Board of Education, telling them that we're proud of them. So Mr. Keys, do you mind talking about these two?
No, I could talk all night about these two. They're fantastic kids. But Dylan Shell, who is a Queensbury senior, 172-pound wrestler who competed in the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Championships, won a state championship. He's the fourth in Queensbury history to earn that title. It's very prestigious. He finished his season 35-0, was never taken down. As a matter of fact, the only points that he gave up this year were the points that he allowed an individual to gain. He let them escape so he could take them down again. That's kind of how he conducted his season. He's a tremendous student who is got a tremendous work ethic, is what I should say, and has really dedicated himself over this past 2 years to becoming the best wrestler that he can be, to the point where now he's receiving multiple Division I looks, and has really used athletics as that avenue to pursue his college of choice, which I think is all we could ever ask. You know, scholarships aside, does playing your sport provide you an opportunity to further your education and better your position, regardless of money given, allow you to get into an institution that might be a stretch. We're just really proud of what he's been able to do, and he's qualified for the. It's a different affiliation from NISPA, a national tournament down in Virginia. So he's training, and that's what he's accustomed to doing, and he's got bigger goals, and I applaud him for that. And then you have Meredith Montgomery, who is a junior, who was a New York State champion in the slalom at Gore 2 weeks ago. Meredith came in there on an upward trajectory. She was definitely trending upward and really started to peak and performed magnificently, winning the slalom. The next day, she competed in the giant slalom, which I got a little bit of insight into. It's a longer race. The turns aren't quite as sharp. You know, I had the luxury of sitting with her parents, or standing with her parents on the side of the mountain, freezing, asking lots of questions about skiing. And she performed second overall in the giant slalom, which qualified her as the female champion from both races. So an individual champion in the overall and in the slalom. And Meredith's only a junior, which is very exciting because she'll be coming back and joining us next year, along with her brother, who was fourth in one of the races overall, as a 7th grader. We had a second 7th grader, Bradley Ward, who was 10th. So the future of alpine skiing was pretty bright. But congratulations to Meredith and to Dylan for just achieving remarkable standards in the sports that they participate in.
being a state champion in the state of New York is something special, so we applaud it.
Okay, our next presentation is going to be a budget presentation from Mr. Whittemore, and just before Mr. Whittemore starts, if there is anybody in the audience that wants to speak at open forum, kindly sign in before we start, and we'll go with Mr. Whittemore on budget.
Thank you so much. Just to recap where we are in the budget as we get into a little more detail on the expenses and revenues for next year's budget. There are 3 Board of Education seats, the 2-year terms, or 2 seats that have 5-year terms, and then the 1 seat that has a 1-year term that would start immediately. That will go to the lowest vote getter, up to 3, and petitions for that are due back to my office by April 18th at 5 o'clock. Another piece that's new for the Board of Education and the community is an action on capital reserve. You will see action on that in tonight's agenda related to the notice, to the actual reserve itself. It does require voter authorization to approve the reserve and to eventually when we spend the money at QES, but that will require voter authorization as well. So the amount is $4 million at a 10-year period. We expect to spend it for the next 2 to 3 years. That will come out of unassigned fund balance, so unspent monies from the district's unassigned fund balance. Some really significant pieces to funding the operations here. Typically, when we think about the budget, usually the general fund budget is so significant that the smaller pieces kind of outweigh that. But there are a few sort of major items to talk through to make sure the Board of Education, if they have any questions or want me to elaborate on, I point those out. Really significant impact of foundation aid in the state, dealing with equity issues in this distribution of state aid. For many, many years, Queensbury has been on the wrong end of those calculations, and we are very fortunate that they've adjusted that problem and continue to have expectations to fully fund foundation aid. So it's been significant to the district in terms of revenue for the state, for the school district from the state. Another source of funding, we're talking about unassigned fund balance being applied to the capital reserve. We're also using assigned fund balance to pay for capital project within the budget and assigned fund balance to pay cash for buses. So we don't have the proposition on that we normally do as we finalize the number of buses that we would like to purchase, but those will go within the budget, save the district interest costs and redirect that one towards construction. Debt service fund, the district has several different funds. General fund is one, federal is another, school lunch. We also have money from debt service fund, which we talked about when we voted on this project, that we would use some of that money in that fund to offset old debt expenses to apply new debt expenses or new capital expenses related to the project that we voted on in December. As we navigate our way through the end of SED and we expect construction to start soon, we will have debt issuance in this year and expenses related to that debt in the next year. So that is a separate fund from what the voters will vote on May 17th, but it's not an insignificant dollar amount. We'll use approximately $1.25 million from that fund to pay expenditures on debt that is currently outstanding. And really significant monies flowing through the federal fund as well. Typically, that's usually just grants related to IDA, special education grants, or more poverty-based grants that are typically very small compared to the general budget, but they're significant related to federal government's efforts to provide relief to school districts related to the pandemic. So the board has seen this slide before, but wanted to bring their attention again. So this fiscal year is unique in terms of how the federal funding has flowed, where we applied for and have, I believe, filed the final cost report on the first set of ERISA grants. That approximately $3 million was applied to prior year operating expenses, and then $4 million applied under the ARP grant to new operating expenses that I want to touch on here, all happening in this fiscal year. So really significant numbers to fund the operations of the school. And the board's seen this before again, but it's important because it's really where the changes are within sort of the operations of the school in terms of people that are here in our employment, director of social emotional learning, dean of students, many additional clubs that we're working for, explaining continued small construction furniture, carrying out what's happened at the high school and now currently happening in the middle school at the WHBI. And then it's a district-wide arts and music initiative, which is really exciting to apply this federal funding to the needs of students. Just talked about the school community survey, where they wanted to see this money spent, safety and security, social emotional learning, educational technology. And we've done a great job working through, or a lot of schools are behind in educational technology. We've not really had to spend the pandemic money on that, but HVAC, ventilation, I know we talked about that, and some of the learning gaps and staff meetings to put these budgets together. It's exciting to have budgets that really support teachers getting additional professional development, so take that into the classroom next year, this fall. So what are the big pieces of the budget everyone wants to know when we sort of go around our community? We're talking about a tax levy increase of 2%. We talked a lot about the history of the tax levy in the Queensbury School District and fit in with our long-term planning. We think 2% is appropriate for that. It is tax cap compliant, so it's within the tax cap. And the budget increase will be larger, a little under 4%, holding it at 3.99 right now. A lot of that is related to the increase in foundation aid and the growth of some expenditures and sort of where those growth. Expect that to track over the next couple of years. So the revenue piece is really a significant increase in state aid. This number, when it increases in prior years, it's been just basically zero. So to have it go up 2 million in 1 year is tremendous in terms of our ability to provide education and benefit taxpayers. We do have a taxpayer tax piece in here, which represents a 2% increase. At this time, keeping assigned fund balance as a budgeting strategy flat. Typically what happens in the budget cycle with the state is state aid may increase a little bit. So as we finalize the budget, we look to decrease the amount of assigned fund balance for the budget. Other things like pilots, very small Medicaid revenue we get, and then no money coming out of the debt service fund in terms of revenue that will stay within the fund by itself. So that represents just under $4 million, 4% increase, 2.7 million increase, or instead about $72 million over the next year. So where does that money get spent? I know I've shown a bar graph to the Board of Education before, and we just chart illustrates that well. Most of the money gets spent on the educational staff. The educational staff, the supports for the students, different, and then the buildings, principals, teachers, teacher aides, people that work here. Most of it goes for salary. So as we are settling different contracts, the board will be acting on contract with QFA today to negotiate the final contracts. That's where we expect to see most of the increase. You'll see a large jump in equipment. That projected jump in equipment is based on paying cash for the buses. So that's what's represented in that jump in equipment. Supplies is probably sufficient. We're working through with the buildings now about needs, but likely those codes district-wide are sufficient to support the supply expenditure for the supplies. BOCES does always tend to increase, and we're actually going to drop some of the debt service piece. I'll talk about that in a second, but sort of balancing these capital pieces to do more than we support some of the instructional programs and benefits. Benefits are always something we have to keep our eyes on. I serve in a health insurance consortium, and Kyle in his role, Mr. Gannon in his role as trustee of that consortium. Our health insurance increase by itself is about getting cash increase of about $500,000. So the district has to budget for that. So I wrestled with how much to talk about inflation. I don't have it as a slide here, but inflation is going to drive everything for us, and I would sort of be remiss if I didn't mention it at least once. It creates pressures on our revenue. It creates pressures on our expenses. Anyone who's filled up a tank of gas, we fill many tanks of gas or diesel with those buses. So it really is a constraint for us, and I'm optimistic that things will be better into next year, but I think it's a little bit understated in terms of school districts are having conversations about the impact of inflation. So I want to mention that here, but we are settling our QFA contract tonight. Of course, record board through on that. We still have the other contracts expiring at the end of this year. So those will be significant increases in costs, and that inflation becomes a cost pressure there with some of our lowest paid staff and how those have to be settled. Buses, talked about that. We're purchasing the buses out of budget expenditure, less interest, which makes fiscal sense. And then juggling some of the building costs. Restructuring some of the debt through debt service, which decreases the general fund debt expense. We're offsetting some of that with an increase in capital expenditure. Builds into long-term planning, continue to build building aid and deal with the structural pieces, but also the infrastructure pieces that are required of a school district size. So what's in that $1.3 million that we talked about before, see on here a secret resolution related to environmental lease. This will be a line item in the budget, so the voters will approve this for the budget itself. Music spaces in the middle school are really sort of budget focus of this. The art spaces will get a lot of attention. One room in the tech space, and then a fitness area in the middle school as well. The high school bleachers are past their useful life, and these single occupancy bathrooms really do not hold up to the standards that they need to. Before, I had an asterisk on here, sort of budget permitting. We've really sort of drilled down these numbers and feel confident that this scope of work is very doable within this authorization. So timelines, I kind of get to the end here. We do have the workshop on the 28th. We'll really get into much more detail to get really a line-by-line budget analysis. On the 11th, if there really are no other questions or input from the board on specifics, we would adopt the budget at that point. And the public gets to weigh in on May 9th, that budget hearing. I know the time, it's at 6:30. We'll just do that ahead of time. And then about a week after that, on that Tuesday, was the budget vote over in QES, 10 a.m. to 8:30. So, are there any questions from the board?
Questions? Any board members? Questions, Scott? Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Okay, we've reached open forum. Okay. First person sign up for open forum, Ileana.
Sorry, we've never done this before. She's a little nervous seeing all the teachers and she doesn't want to be seen as a troublemaker. But it's nothing like that at all. It's basically she had just drew something and masks are no longer, so it's not even really an issue right now. She just wanted to share it with you, so if numbers go up and in the future it becomes an issue again, maybe you would consider having forums with the kids and kind of getting their feelings about how they feel before we make everyone wear them. But
I drew this drawing not too long ago about the mask and how it was affecting the kids, even though we didn't really let it show. And I was just hoping, like, if anything like this ever came back, you would give the kids more of a voice. Because even though we didn't really show it, we didn't talk about it. I know for a lot of my friends, it's affecting them. Some have had trouble breathing a lot of the time. So I was just hoping, like, in the near future, just give the kids like a voice or something like this.
she also had shared that it was kind of something they kind of hide behind. They don't want to show their faces if they have acne and stuff. I never even thought of that myself, so I don't know.
Mind turn the picture on to the camera so the folks online can see it. So put a lot of time into it. So appreciate you coming up to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank
you. Alyssa. Alyssa S. Hi.
I'm really nervous, just letting you know.
next to her. Not a public speaker in any way, shape, or form. So,
Just turn the mic toward you so everyone can hear you online as well. It's support members online.
can you hear me?
It's just my speaking. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So anyway, my name is Alyssa Strain, 20T Drive, Queensbury, New York. I have 2 kids in the school district and 4 nephews. And I'm actually coming to you today because of some bus stop issues. I've provided some visual aids for you guys. I know how to do the flash drives and stuff like that. So, but it's easier for you to just see it. So anyway, but I'm coming to you because the town, county, and school district and the superintendents have all denied any and all responsibility of bus stop oversight. The director of transportation has kindly told me it's not my problem anytime I call to voice my concerns. Surely someone is responsible for ensuring that all students have safe and appropriate place to access the school bus. I'm coming to you today because all the finger pointing always points to the school district. The town superintendent has informed me that the school district is responsible for appropriate traffic signage at bus stops. So I'm requesting that the bus stop at the intersection of Bay Road and Tea Hill Road be moved into the Country Colony Road neighborhood, and that bus stop ahead and children crossing signs be installed on the southbound sides of Bay Road and Tea Hill Road. If you look on page 2 of your packet, that's the area in question. It's the farm stand on Bay Road. I'm sure most of you are familiar with. So, as most of you know, this is a very busy 3-way intersection. What you probably don't know is that there is only one school bus sign at any of those intersections. And it's obviously a big concern, especially with the new 144 new apartments that are being built half a mile down the road. So it's exactly a half a mile down the road, actually. And we all know that Bay Road is a major artery connecting Lake George in Vermont to Queensbury, Glens Falls, and the surrounding area. It's accessed by cars, motorcycles, trucks, and semi-trucks. So please refer to page 1. I can stop the camera.
We'll make sure the board
Okay.
members.
So this is a picture of my daughter. She was 6 at the time, but it's like the same thing every day anyway. So, but she's walking on the shoulderless unmarked road towards a construction site, which is also the bus stop. More often than not, there are utility trucks, construction vehicles, dump trucks just sitting there. You know, in this picture, she's walking and there's about 6 men at the end of the road. And there's about, there's a three or four trucks there as well. And she's supposed to catch the bus somewhere there. And it's just kind of scary for kids, you know. She said that that's like her biggest thing. She doesn't like the bus stop because of all big cars and stuff there. So it is a high traffic environment that's completely outside the neighborhood. And a lot of, like I said, heavy construction, blah, blah, blah. So, but the same day that I took that picture of my daughter walking on the road towards a construction site known as the bus stop, a Queensbury school bus drove right by my house. And for the rest of the year, it drove by my house every day, rain, shine, to drop a student off outside of the neighborhood to like his babysitter or grandmother's house. So I'm going to go over my time limit. Is that okay? Or no? I can come back. Okay.
You're the last people.
All right, sorry, guys. I can't talk that fast. So anyway, when I contacted, so drove right by my school. So after frustrating situation with neighbors, after discussing this frustrating situation with the neighbors, it was discovered that for one whole school year, the bus stop was moved into the neighborhood for 1 year. But then it was moved back to the farm stand because, and I quote from the director of transportation, it took too much time to get through the neighborhood. So me seeing a school bus drive through my neighborhood every day, you know, it took about, I timed it, it took about anywhere between 1 to 1.25 minutes to get around my neighborhood to drop off a non-neighborhood student, while my daughter's walking down a shoulderless road to, you know, a strange place where there's a lot of traffic. So the bus stop has been deemed quote unquote, deemed comparable to most other bus stops, according to some of the superintendents. So for comparison's sake, the bus driving through my neighborhood, which is about half a mile, took about 1 to 1.25 minutes. And now another half a mile, you take half a mile Mountain View Road, I don't know if anybody gets behind a bus on that road, but it stops a minimum of 6 times. And 3 of those bus stops are within 100 feet of one another. So, and it's just like, is that comparable? That's not even remotely comparable. So that's, part of the problem. It's just a big thing. So if you look on page 2, again, you'll see that my neighborhood has 2 loops then there's 5 possible spots for bus stop anywhere in that neighborhood. And it would only take maybe 2 minutes total to pick up these kids on this half-mile stretch. So, and then I have 2 more concerns about why this is such an issue. So if you were to refer to your pages 5 and 9, 5 through 9, they're all numbered in the bottom right-hand corner. It's like a blurb from the parent-student handbook. Whenever possible, the transportation department tries to arrange drop-off and pick-up locations so students don't have to cross the road. And if you look through pages 5 through 9, you will see that that's not happening. In order to access the school bus, the kids have to cross T Hill Road to begin with. And there is no stop sign, or not, there's no school bus sign, and there's no child crossing signs. It's the bottom of a hill. And when unloading from the bus, students are sometimes expected to cross the southbound lane of Bay Road, which also does not have any indication that there is a bus stop ahead for the 2 miles that it goes from 149 to the bus stop. So, and I know I'm guilty. I go over 45 on that road sometimes, it's like, it's easy to do. So, but there's no indication that there's a bus stop. And I just find that to be problematic. So, and you'll see there's pictures of kids crossing these roads that don't have any no signs. And then on page 9, there is a picture of my son walking on the road back home from the bus stop. And I'm curious if you can even see him. It's pitch black. And I had to flash the car that's driving by him because they couldn't see him. And because there's no road, because it's shoulderless, or there's no shoulder. So, that's scary, and, to see and to know that your kid, who should be able to walk home from the bus stop. I mean, that's kind of a thing that you should all be able to do. So, that is a big issue. And then the final issue that I have, and I appreciate everybody. So, okay. Oh, so anyway, another thing from the handbook is that, that students should wait a safe distance from the bus stop. If you look at pages 10 through 15, you'll see that there's absolutely no place on a snow day for parents to park or kids to get out. And if they are to get out of the car, it will literally be in the middle of the road. It's up to the parents to get the farm stand plowed. And I think it's the county's responsibility, but every once in a while, finger gets pointed another way. So you can see my frustration. And then when they're walking home, they have to walk in a snowbank when the cars come because there's nowhere for them to go. There's no shoulder or anything like that. And then finally, and this is my, probably my biggest, scariest thing about all of this is okay, according to the Queensbury website, page 16, students should arrive 5 minutes early. So for 5 minutes, our kids are expected to wait. And like I said, this bus stop is very, got a lot of strange men, a lot of big equipment and things like that. So pages 1 and pages 17 through 25 are just a few examples of what our neighborhood kids see and have to go to when they go to the bus stop. It's not just equipment, it's always strange men. There's a lot of old strange men that just sit there. It's kind of disturbing. There was one here just yesterday. And it's just, there's one house there, but that's not the person that's parking there. And it's just sketchy. I mean, it's, you wouldn't want that. Actually, Mr. Gannon, in a phone call, you did say that you would not want your daughters to have that bus stop. And I appreciate you saying that and admitting it because it is a dangerous place. And it's very hard to send my kids to school every day unless I drive them, which, high schoolers should be able to walk to the bus stop by themselves, but I'm concerned for safety and things like that. So, but my biggest concern is the strange people at this bus stop. And it's mostly, like I said, old men. And I'm concerned, like I just think of, JC Dugard and was it Stephen Stainer and things like that. Just walking to the bus stop, Eton, some pets or Pete's or something like that. And it's a problem. I have one statistic, and I calculated it several times. Children are more likely to be kidnapped than they are to be hospitalized due to COVID-19. The numbers show that, and I find that that's kind of disturbing in a way that, like, I'd rather my kid get COVID than get kidnapped, kind of thing. So you did hear that right. That was correct. So, okay, that's it. I have. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it, everybody. So yes, just new signs or some signs and a new location for the bus stop, please. Thank you. Have a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. I know you're nervous, but we'll see Mr. Gannon or a member of the administration. We'll get back to the situation. We'll address the best we can.
Thank you.
All I have for open forum. Anyone want to speak in second on the board, please just let us know. We can sign up still. Go from there. But we'll get right into the business items. Mr. Whittemore.
Recommended board business item A, motion related to the secret resolution related to the May 2022 project.
Can I get a motion, please? Thank you, Stacy. A second.
Second, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Any discussion on the motion? Something that was in the prior report, so we should look at it. Roll call vote. Ms. Whitmore.
Trustee Belvin,
Aye.
trustee Bleidenberg. Aye. Trustee Cabana,
Aye.
trustee Flaherty.
Aye.
Trustee Hardesty,
Aye.
trustee Mannix,
Aye.
trustee Malloy,
Aye.
trustee Shay,
Aye.
trustee Weaver.
Aye.
Recommended board approve business item E. Motion related to the capital reserve as presented.
Motion, please. So moved. Thank you. Second.
Second, Tim.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we have another roll call vote. Ms. Whitmore.
Trustee Belvin,
Aye.
trustee Bleidenberg, trustee Cabana,
Aye.
trustee Flaherty.
Aye.
Trustee Hardesty,
Aye.
trustee Mannix,
Aye.
trustee Malloy,
Aye.
Shay,
Aye.
trustee Weaver.
Aye.
Recommended board approve business item C, motion related to the budget notice as presented.
Have a motion, please. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Stacy. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we have a third roll call vote.
Trustee Belvin,
Aye.
trustee Bleidenberg, trustee Cabana,
Aye.
trustee Flaherty.
Aye.
Trustee Hardesty,
Aye.
trustee Mannix,
Aye.
trustee Malloy,
Aye.
Shay,
Aye.
trustee Weaver.
Aye.
We're going to remove number D, because we have not heard back from state ed as we anticipated, so that'll be put over to our next opportunity to vote, which may or may not be in 2 weeks. We'll see.
Recommended board approve business item E, motion to accept the resignation for retirement purposes of Rodney Cronin, high school secretary, and sincere appreciation of the grant effective June 30, 2020.
That's not needs to be amended to June 30th. Actually, I'm sorry,
June 3rd.
it is June 30th. Okay. Have a motion, please.
So moved.
Thanks, Tim. Stacy, second. Any discussion on the motion as presented? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Recommend the board approve business. Yes. Recommend the board approve business consent items F through Y.
So we're gonna remove letter R, and vote separately on that. Are there any other items that any board members would like to remove for consideration? Okay, hearing none. F, business consent items, I need a motion, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Thanks, Brad. Second, Pat? Is that you, Pat?
No, it wasn't.
No, it was me, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, so consent items, so all in favor of business consent items F through Y minus R, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Business consent item F through Y minus R passes.
Recommend the board approve item R, motion to accept the donation of $100 from the Flaherty family with sincere appreciation for the school as well.
So moved, Pat.
I'm sorry, Pat?
Yep.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Stay.
Motion R carries. Stacey, thank you very much. Board member.
Educational items. I recommend the board move to approve action item A, a motion to approve the following long-term substitute teacher position of Cody Stinson, a QMS social studies long-term sub.
Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Stacy. Second?
Second, Pat.
Who's back?
Yes.
Back. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion A carries.
I recommend the board move to approve action item B, a motion to approve the following probationary appointment of Kimberlyn Sheffield, four-year probationary teaching assistant at Queensbury Middle School.
Motion, please.
So moved, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Ron, second. Thanks. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion B carries.
I recommend the board move to approve educational consent items C through K.
Would any board member like any items removed from the consent items C through K? Okay, can I have a motion, please? Thank you, Jamie. Second?
Second, Tim.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Consent items pass. Board committee reports. Where the facilities met, I'm sure policy met. Safety committee met. Second,
I can start with facilities if you want, Dan.
yes, please, Sam, go ahead.
We did meet March 9th, this past Wednesday, on the capital project phase 1, we were updated. We are still waiting SCD approval, from the state. So I'm not sure if we're still in that holding pattern as we speak. I didn't hear anything more, so I'm assuming we are. the electrical contractor, the bids were out, were approved. Clune from Boston Spa was awarded for that. We did discuss tweaking the field a little bit and moving it maybe to the west 15 feet for safety reasons, because we were butted up pretty close to the road. So the architects are going to take a look at that. The turf field review of renderings went on, discussed a lot of things on it. The grandstand looking maybe at 800 seating capacity. We also discussed a turf field storage location, which I think we pretty much came to agreement on that, as close to the field as possible. So our director of grounds, Lee Rounds, recommended that we get it as close as possible to keep the tractor that will have the brush attachments and stuff, mostly on the turf and less on regular ground, and keeping everything in good condition there. The turf field timeline for the septic field, that'll be the first to start. And then we will go into phase 2, and we're looking at submission of that to state ed around June of this year. The field is really, the renderings and everything is coming together great. It's looking really sharp, and things are moving along really well with that. We did have another meeting, I believe the week before, in the pool in the QES. We did take a tour of that, and looking at the starting blocks, which need to be replaced, with the timing pads in the pool. Look at some different seating options in the grandstands. The renderings, the digital renderings that we saw were really sharp with our logo of the Q, some fresh paint, really sharpening things up in there. The new tile on the floor, the depth indicators in the tile. Anything else I'm missing on that, Dan? I know you were there.
Just the proposed acoustical ceiling, and that was a very nice addition to it. You've been in the pool area, you know it can get loud and echoey. So these ceiling tiles that they proposed, running side to side, really assist in understanding someone when they're talking in there. And I don't think we talked about replacing the scoreboard, did we? So it's just new timing pads, new liner.
The new entrance into the pool itself from the hallway will be taken down, and that'll all be opened up with a different entrance, which will be nice. And I think that was about it.
Some new glass at the far end where the
Correct.
courtyard is. Looked very nice, so we get as much natural light in there as possible. So the planning and the renderings, everything's coming along. It is beautifully. So facilities and we did talk about, I think, some of the other items that are in the project. And so I think plans right on schedule, kind of ahead. The bids that were open, of course, we couldn't vote on them tonight because of SCD not approving the project yet, but I believe the bids came in very competitive and at or below what was expected. Is that fair to say?
I went out with this, they list on the website,
so they've spoken to that.
That was facilities, policies, someone talk about, I know we had some things to look at. Amy?
I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
Yep, I'm going to report on the policy committee. We met this last week to review a draft of the non-resident student policy. This will be a new policy for us. Just a little bit of historical context. Since I think it was 2004, Queensbury had a moratorium on accepting non-resident students. And there was a number of reasons for this. I think probably the biggest was that at the time, our enrollment numbers were high and they were increasing. And there was concern about our ability to accept students from outside the district. Fast forward 18 years, and we actually have the exact opposite happening currently. And really for the last few years, we've seen a decline in enrollment. And when we take that and just kind of couple it with some other factors like the success of our IB program, which in recent years we've opened it up to students who didn't have this option available to them as part of their home districts, and also our student visa programs, it felt like the right time. And in addition to a number of other factors, it felt like the right time to take a new look at this. There are other districts in the area that have been accepting non-resident students. So we started with a NISBA draft and made some minor adjustments based on the experiences of other districts, and appreciate the research that went into contacting other districts and kind of getting a sense of what their experiences have been. I think it was really helpful in informing us. So we started with the draft from NISBA, made some adjustments, and the first reading is scheduled for our next board meeting on April 11th.
Thank you very much, Amy. I know the policy committee, along with Amy and Barry's put a lot of time into this. Had discussions about it, and so appreciate all the time people are spending on it. So moving forward. Anything else, Amy?
Actually, no, one other thing. There's this regular cycle of reviewing policies, but I think one of the things that we found in looking at policies, and even in looking at this draft policy, was sometimes there's more we can do to be inclusive with respect to things like language. And so I just want to acknowledge that and say that we're working on that we, Amy is helping us kind of working on a way to do that, and just being mindful of all the work that's going into diversity, equity, inclusion. It starts with policy. And so we're making sure that we're being mindful and our policies are reflective of that in general.
Thank you very much. That's what we do. So it's very important work. Thank you very much. Health committee.
We met. We met on February 17th, and our next meeting is next week on Thursday. Had a very robust agenda, but ended up on just the first topic, took the entire meeting, and it was a wonderful discussion. And it was all about screen time and our students and their mental health and the impact of COVID and the pandemic. And so it was a fantastic discussion for that entire hour, which led to an intense plan of what we're going to do for this next year, so it could feed into the parent university, having speakers come in, have assemblies, tying it into social media and safety, and looking at every building, because we think screen time, you think of phones, but that also means tablets, because I know the little ones don't always have phones, but they have iPads or Kindles or whatnot. So I know that there were staff and administrators looking at things that have been provided before, screenagers. There's something called IndieFlix and a documentary called Life at the high school is looking at that. That's it. It was a wonderful meeting. It took an entire hour just that topic, but it just gives us.
That's great. Thank you very much. Who else was on that meeting?
On board.
Yeah. Okay.
District advisory. It's the district health advisory.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yes, it's the district. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Important stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, faculty, staff, just super nice.
So we have a safety committee. Okay.
We met today. It was probably the most valid meeting we had. Lots of it's met before. We're good. I know John Dawes and the building schools. Site really fine tuning those plans, incorporating those building level plans and then evacuation. We're talking about habits and getting back into the habits of fire drills, lockdowns, making sure that coming off and that fire drills, lockdowns. A little bit different.
Did I miss any other committees? Report? Okay, thank you very much. The board member comments.
I do, Dan.
Anything you want, Tim?
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's in agreement with this, that the play was absolutely phenomenal. The acting, the singing, the choreography, kids were spot on, such talent. It was absolutely amazing. I'm glad I was able to attend, and kudos to Mr. Terry, his wife Sarah, and I'd probably get wrong if I try to keep naming everybody, but the rest of the crew for the play, they did a great job. It was excellent, and glad to see they were able to get the Saturday performance in as well with the weather. Very enjoyable.
It's a phenomenal programming. Found myself reflecting on the year as we were sitting there with my son, appreciating the talent on the stage and the year that we've had coming out of COVID with state champions, with this performance. We've certainly had a lot of challenges, but it's certainly been very nice to see the kids' faces again, to see the progress that we've made. Last year, we had a virtual play. We didn't compete in some sports. So attending basketball games or volleyball games, whatever it happened to be, was a really nice process. It's really progressed well throughout this year. Thanks to a lot of people in this room and those online. It was really nice. And as I said, I was enjoying the show immensely. Think of all the things that have gone on. I've yet to go on that concert Wednesday night to see, and then we'll have graduation to accommodate everything. So really a lot of progress. So very pleased. Any other board comments? Okay. Come to the time of second open forum. Did anyone want to speak in the second open forum? We do have need for executive session. There's some informational items, quite a few. Always a lot going on when you get into the spring, and then so please take a moment and look at those. So I'll need a motion to go into executive session for pursuant to subdivision 1D of the open meetings law to discuss pending litigation, and pursuant to subdivision 3 of section 108 of the open meetings law to discuss matters made confidential by federal or state law involving attorney-client privilege matters pursuant to section 4503 of the New York Civil Practice Law and Rules. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Second.
Second, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. John, do we have a new link for the board members?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you'll receive it. You have already received that link and dial back in. Thank you all for attending. Appreciate your time. And Discussion?